I want to thank everybody for coming out for this news conference, press conference. Wanted to talk about some recent events that tie into the shooting incidents we've had around Kissimmee, St. Cloud, and the unincorporated area of Osceola over the last couple of weeks. We met about a week ago to discuss the arrest of Mr. Rodzkowski for the Sun Club shooting. We since have made additional arrests that we're going to talk about and show you what those cases are linked to. Before we get started, I want to recognize, obviously, Sheriff Hansel with Osceola, Chief Gauntlet with St. Cloud PD, and to my far left is Special Agent in Charge Danny Banks with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, who was critical in assisting us with some of the forensic evidence that eventually helped us bring some closure to these cases. In addition, I'd like to recognize Mayor Swan, Commissioner Rentas, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Shaw from the city of Kissimmee, who's in the audience today, and I believe the Assistant City Manager is in the back, Desiree Matthews. And then obviously we have our support staff around with this as well. What we want to talk about today are the arrest of a couple of individuals that were made early this morning, that we will show you a map that they are linked to of the incidents we've had in the 3 jurisdictions. The primary incident that I want to speak about is the homicide we had on Central Avenue, where a young man by the name of David Guerrero was shot and killed about 2 weeks ago. And as a result of the arrests that were made this morning, we're able to put charges on the what we believe to be the shooter in that case. I will tell you that I met with the Guerrero family this afternoon. I expressed our condolences again. We've stayed in direct contact with them since the incident. At this time, they're not comfortable with making any public statements. But one thing that I wanted to express is that Mr. Guerrero, the victim in that case, was an absolutely innocent young man going to the bus stop to go to work. There was no indication whatsoever that we have found that he was involved in any type of nefarious activity, just out trying to do the right thing, and unfortunately had a couple of individuals that decided to take his life for no apparent reason at all. As a matter of fact, we'll discuss, I believe we can discuss one of the statements made by the shooter as it relates to Mr. Guerrero, and that was he thought it would be neat or cool. What was the exact, Lieutenant? Fun. He thought it would be fun to shoot Mr. Guerrero. So that's the type of individuals that we put in jail today. To get started, again, this is the map that the majority of you saw a couple of weeks ago or a week and a half ago. These are the incidents in Kissimmee, St. Cloud, and unincorporated Osceola that we have linked to the arrests that were made this morning. As you can see, the incidents in green are the Sheriff's Office, incident in blues are Kissimmee's, the incidents in red are St. Cloud. I'm going to speak to the Kissimmee cases. I'll let the Sheriff speak to the Osceolas, and I'll let Chief Gauntlet speak to St. Cloud. One of the things I want to talk about that we felt were very fortunate to have made to us was a private company that is known as the Florida Metal Detecting Club. And what they are is a group of volunteers that travels around with high grade or highly sensitive metal detectors to assist, in this case law enforcement obviously, in searching crime scenes for anything that may be of value to us forensically. In this particular instance, we brought that group out last Saturday to the Central Avenue location, where they agreed to help us search the area to include a very significant retention pond, in hopes of maybe finding a piece of evidence that would help in solving this case. Probably 20 or 30 minutes into the search, they were able to uncover a casing to a .45 caliber firearm that eventually, through the assistance of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, we were able to link to the incidents at the several other locations that are here today. That weapon we knew from early on was a very unique type of firearm known as a high-point 45 caliber. And I'm going to show you, these are the individuals with the metal detector devices out on that particular day. They literally set them up in grids, did a search of that area. We're out there for quite a long time. That was the casing that was found that eventually led us to the shooter. And that's the rifle. Very unique firearm in the sense that it's almost a carbine-looking rifle, a 45 caliber. What we decided to do, because this was a critical piece of evidence to us because of the uniqueness of the firearm, initially we were concerned about putting that information out. We reached the point where Investigator Torres with Kissimmee PD made the decision to reach out to some of the local gun dealers in our area, and we were able to get cooperation from one of those business owners that indicated he had just recently sold this type of firearm. So what that gave us was a piece of actionable intelligence, because what we decided to do was to work backwards off of the individual that purchased this gun to see if it would lead us in the direction of possibly being in the hands of the suspect. We were able to not only find the firearm, but tie the individual that bought it, whose son was eventually our arrestee, through some collaborative communication, some interview techniques. We were able to make the arrest on the individual that had that gun. And these are the two subjects that we arrested. Mr. Schaefer at the top is the actual shooter. Not only is he the shooter in the homicide, but as you look at the map and see our locations, he was the shooter at the Temple Grove condos, both locations on Smith Street, the location on Lasagne. I believe that was all of ours. And then I'll let the sheriff and Chief Gauntlet talk about the others. But in interviewing Mr. Schaefer for quite a while this morning, he eventually decided to tell us that he just drove around and randomly picked targets, thought it was cool, and when he saw Mr. Guerrero walking down the street at 6 something in the morning, he thought it would be fun to shoot a person, so he eventually made that decision and took Mr. Guerrero's life with that firearm.